All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the February 2026 WiscWeb Lunch and Learn. I'm Jenna Klinner. I'm the service coordinator for the WiscWeb team. I'm joined here by Matt Goins, who you saw on cam just now, who will also be speaking later today. And then we have two guests here today. We have Al Nemick from the Center for User Experience. Al is the Digital Accessibility Program Manager over there. And we have Ketter Joyner, who works for the Office of Strategic Communications Digital Strategy team. And Ketter is a UX designer on their team. So we're happy to have them. And they'll be filling us in with some information in a bit. Here's what we've got on the agenda today. We have our regular WiscWeb service updates and reminders. I'm going to give a little plug for how you find documentation now that we're in this world of having old UW Theme Classic content as well as new UW Theme 2.0 content. We'll also talk about UW Theme 2.0 migration updates and reminders. Then we're going to do a little handoff to Ketter, who's going to talk about UW Events plugin release for UW Theme 2.0. Then Al is going to chat about some accessibility support and resources. Oh, and then we're going to have a couple demos. Matt is going to show you the new hide a block feature in UW Theme 2.0, and Ketter is going to chat through some design best practices. All right, so for WiscWeb service updates and reminders, I did just want to bring this up because we did receive a couple of questions about this. If you have a site in web hosting as well as WiscWeb, web hosting did send out an email recently related to SSL shifts with their certificate management process. Just noting for this audience that that does not impact your WiscWeb site, so you should be fine, no action required there. And then a reminder, we had sent out an email a couple weeks ago about claiming unlaunched sites. There was some confusion around this, so I did just want to touch on this really briefly, and I'll upload the spreadsheet to the chat momentarily. But essentially, we have a number of sites in our old UW Theme Classic environment that never launched. So they're still publishing to .wiscweb.wisc.edu URLs. This does not impact any new sites that are in UW Theme 2.0. It's just the old sites. And what we're essentially trying to do is figure out with those sites, are they abandoned? Are they still in use? And that information will help us understand our scope for migration. So we're having folks just kind of claim those sites so we know whether or not they will need to migrate. That helps us just understand kind of like where we might need to focus our efforts throughout this year. So I'll add the unlaunched site spreadsheet to the chat in case you hadn't seen that yet. And you can kind of look through that and see if there's any sites in that list that are yours. If they are still needed, you can claim them. If they're not, you can note that. And that information is extremely helpful for us. So thank you in advance for any help that you can provide with just sort of noting whether or not those are still in use. All right. I did want to do a plug for finding documentation. We've talked about this before, but as new groups of users are coming into the new UW theme environment, it is helpful to just kind of level set on this. We can post some of these links in the chat momentarily, but just noting UW Theme Classic documentation. So for those of you who have not migrated your sites yet, that content is still in our knowledge base space, but it's in its own like little protected UW Theme Classic bubble there. So there's still documentation for that. It just exists in a very specific location because we will close that out once we are done migrating sites. For those of you who are starting in UW Theme 2.0, all documentation related to that theme is on the UW Theme 2.0 website. And if you're looking specifically for content related to like the blocks that are available, how-tos on and instructional content, the features option on that website is where you should look. I think Matt's posting links to that in the chat right now. We also recommend checking out the new guides that are available. Thanks to a shout out to Ketter Joyner for creating those guides. She's been doing excellent work just kind of understanding where folks might be getting hung up with the theme and then creating excellent guidance. That's all located into that guides hub. So plug for that. And then just noting that our main WiscWeb KB space has been transitioned into more of like a policy, procedures, and service specific documentation. So the theme content will exist on the Theme 2.0 website, and then WiscWeb's main KB space is more for just like service related content. Um, and then again, if you aren't sure which theme you're using on which site, if you scroll down to the footer of a site, it does say UW Theme Classic or UW Theme 2.0. So just sharing that in case you're not sure on any of the sites that you own. All right, now we've got some UW Theme 2.0 migration updates and reminders. As a reminder, the migration path is open for existing WiscWeb sites. Sites that are in our service do need to migrate by the end of calendar year 2026. We do have office hours available for you all. We have virtual office hours and in-person office hours. And we also have a lovely option as well. Thank you to Stratcom, who is offering design-specific office hours. Matt, if you could throw that office hours link in the chat as well, that would be helpful. So we're here to help you if you have questions along the way as you're migrating your sites. We'll do our best to answer those. I also wanted to note, if you haven't started migrating your content, but you've already had us kind of sync things over, we are regularly making updates to that migration plugin to kind of improve the way that it's moving content in. So it is handy to use the reset content button to apply updates that we continue to make. So if you're running into something where you're like, this isn't migrating as expected, sometimes resetting the content on that page can help. And I'll just kind of grab our migration process documentation, which will help you kind of orient to where we're talking about here. I do see that there was a question in the chat. How do we know if our site has been migrated or not? Is this happening automatically or is this something you need to do manually? Great question, Brianna. You do need to request a migration. We won't know you're ready until you send in that request. You can just use our new site request form for that. There's an option for migrating in there. And I would guess that if you haven't officially filled that out for any sites, the site likely isn't migrated. So I'll add the new site request form. All right, there's another question there. Any updates on when the migration tools will be available for non-WiscWeb sites that use UW Theme? The dev site says UW Theme team plans to share WiscWeb migrations tool more broadly in the future. Great question. At this time, we're really focused on existing WiscWeb sites migrating into the new environment. That's sort of our primary charge. But we are seeing an increase in interest in migrating non-WiscWeb sites into WiscWeb. At this time, we are still in the very early phases of figuring out how this might work. There's a lot of complexity involved. There's not only the kind of like technical side of things of like how do you pick up a site from another location and move it in, but there's also significant support related overhead there. So I would say at this point in time, hang tight. We'll definitely try to let that community know when we feel like we have something that's kind of ready for broad use. We have tested this out with a couple sites, but we're learning a lot as we do that. And we don't want to open that up more broadly just yet because there were some things that we found along the way that we want to give some more time to. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to then hand things off to Ketter, who's going to talk a little bit about the UW Events plugin release. Take it away, Ketter.
Yeah. Is it cool if I share should I share my screen? Was that okay?
It's up to you. I have
Cool.
no strong feelings.
Okay. I'm gonna do it.
All right, I
Uh,
will stop.
Presenting share tab. Okay. Well, let's share desktop 2 and share, and you should be seeing it. How's my audio?
You're fine.
Okay.
You're not ringy.
I'm not ringing. Okay, thank you. I'm paranoid. Um, yeah, so I'm not going to be demoing the UW events plugin today. Maybe we can do that in a different session, but you can go to as Jenna mentioned earlier, the UW Theme 2.0 website. If you go under the features drop down and you go down to plugins, you can see a list of available plugins that people can download with the theme. If you're outside of WiscWeb, these plugins are already in that infrastructure for you to enable. But you'll see here that UW Events is listed and you can learn how to add events to your site. Um, and you can learn more about this plugin there. Um, and something that has come up is just people having some confusion between, let me present this so you guys can see the full screen view. Oh, geez. Always happen in real time. There we go. Um, there is some confusion between, people have asked the difference between UW Events plugin and then today.wisc.edu. In UW Theme 2.0, there is the today.wisc.edu Gutenberg block as well to display events from UW's official campus calendar. So just wanted to clear up confusion there that these are two separate things. Events that you create with the UW Events plugin are local to your site. They do not display on today.wisc.edu. And today.wisc.edu, if you're using that Gutenberg block, you'll automatically pull in a feed from that campus calendar and events that you have on there. So this is just kind of showing you a little bit of a side by side between those two. Um, yeah, and so when do you want to consider using one over the other? So definitely consider using today .wisc.edu when your event is open to all of campus. So think like high visibility keynotes that are open to everybody, campus-wide lectures. We often have groups that have weekly lectures that are available for folks. Um, Art and theater events like Chazen Museum or Hamel Music Center, things like that might have public events. Also, things that connect to major campus moments. So, like homecoming and commencement events that are related to those things are going to be in the campus-wide calendar. So, if you've got things that support that, it's useful to have those all in the same place if they need that public visibility and on that shared calendar. Also, think about like cross-unit or interdisciplinary events that you might have. So, oftentimes groups will have like host panels with multiple people. There's been some pretty interesting AI ones, for example, that might be from the computer science department, but available for anyone to join and sign up for things like that. And if any of your events support visitors or prospective students, so that's a place where a lot of people go for that type of event content. So if you want to reach those people and not have those events local to your site, it could be useful to have those on the campus-wide calendar. So basically, sort of the rule of thumb is like if people outside your unit might attend, maybe consider using today.wisc.edu instead if it meets your needs. So the value of today.wisc.edu, this is showing you just a quick preview of that block in Gutenberg if you were to uh, go to the block inserter and select it to add to your page. Um, Kind of like I mentioned before, today.wisc is where students and faculty and staff are kind of already going to see what's happening, so they're just used to doing that. Um, if your event is posted just once on today.wisc.edu, you can share that across UW Theme 2.0 sites by using the today.wisc Gutenberg block. So it's an easier way to kind of share things without having to duplicate them. Um, and then, listing an event on the central campus calendar helps with other people being able to discover what's going on campus and also other groups being able to like schedule things based on when other things are happening if they're available there. Um, and oh, yep, that's the last slide I had there. I'll give it to you, Matt.
I will just say there were a couple questions
Couple
in the
questions
chat,
there.
Ketter. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Yeah.
Um, It looks like there's a question, can I use Udemy events and Today.wisc to publicize the same event? Um, I think the answer is yes,
I
maybe
can jump
but.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
you certainly could.
Yeah.
I would say you're then maintaining two things in different
Yep.
places. So if one updates, you want to make sure that that content stays in sync. So that would be the just something I would keep in mind if that's the approach you take.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I was typing that answer into Jojo anyway. I was gonna say you certainly can, but you have to be aware of the fact that you're creating redundant work for yourself. But I understand the need for if you want to sort of maintain that. And again, the benefit of using these lists is you can target different areas of your site to list out all of these events, and that kind of plays into Katie's question, which is, can I display differently tagged events on my site? Yes, you can. You can use taxonomies to differentiate your lists throughout your site. If we had more time today, I would do a demo, but we are tight. So maybe next month we'll try to schedule something in to show off a few of the things that we have done over the last few months in relation to updates to the theme and plugins that we have also added in. So but yes, you can use the various taxonomies to differentiate what you see throughout your site there. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Back to the slideshow.
Wait, just one sec. We do have a couple
Wait.
more questions coming in.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Uh,
Um,
Vanessa asked, does this mean we can import one event from UW event, not just a whole block, like science events? I might need some clarification on that question. It says, sorry from today.
yeah,
Vanessa?
so my reading of that, Vanessa, is that if you wanted to just import one event, you're not honestly, and if you're just wanting to do one thing, I would just make my own little spot for something and link off to it specifically. But the today.wisc.edu block itself is meant to pull in a feed. It's meant to be fed from a particular category on the today.wisc.edu listings there. But yeah, what I would do is to get around that, I would just create my own, I would just make myself a little block of, I'd use one of the patterns that we have and uh and just kind of recreate a little bit of that content and then just link off to that particular event at today.wisc.edu if I wanted to. Yep. Okay. And then Jenna, you answered Leah's question about the UW Think Class. Okay. It's my turn now. We're going to talk a little bit about the hide a block feature. Let me share my screen. Screen one. Nope. Let's move everything back over to Meow. There we go. Okay. Close a couple things up here that we don't need. Okay. So one of the things that was added recently in UW core, I'm sorry, not UW, I'm sorry, WordPress core updates is the functionality to hide blocks that you don't want visible, but still want to maintain that content within your page itself. Within UW Theme Classic, we used to have an ability to hide these blocks. That's not something that we carried over into Classic because Core itself now provides that functionality. So what I've done here is I have added a couple of patterns, a card with image, text, and links, and you'll notice that I have added the background color of red to one of them just to make it stand out a little bit on this page that I'm just kind of demoing things on. To hide elements, to hide these groupings, you need to have them grouped together. You're not doing this via individual blocks. So, if I have text, I don't have that ability to hide something here. But at the top level of my group, if I want to hide this particular group block, I would click on the three dot option, and you'll see now in that listing there is the hide there. And so now it's still there technically, but both on the front end, not technically, it's still there, but it's just not visible because I have hidden that content. And so if I save it, hard refresh, it's now gone. But it's still there if I wanted to go back and add it back in or make some changes and then rehide it. So it's not editable once I've hidden it. You have to unhide it, edit it, and then rehide it. So that's just something to be aware of from that standpoint. Let's see notes here. Blah blah blah. Replaces the setting that. Yep, I covered everything for group and cover
Yeah.
blocks only. Sorry, that's
Yes.
the one thing. Yeah.
I also just wanted to reiterate that there was that old way of doing it that will
Yep.
be removed eventually. So please work on moving over to this new way if you were hiding content anywhere, so that when we remove that option, your content that was hidden doesn't just suddenly appear on a page.
Mhm.
Yeah, Claire asks, can you give an idea of when someone would want to hide a block? Totally, yes. This is
You're.
something that we see. Oh,
I was just gonna
sorry.
say you're not slow because I don't understand it either.
Yeah,
I know there are design reasons why you might want to hide a block, but I just
yeah.
like if I don't want the content, I'm just gonna get rid of the
I think,
content.
right. I think I see this mostly with groups who maybe have seasonal content that they uh, want to kind of, they don't want to delete and lose, but it's just for like maybe a particular time of year, or maybe they're planning to put something out and they want to get it ready, but they don't want to have it live just yet. Um, I don't know if I'll kind of open the door in case there's others who want to jump in on how they've used this before, but there is some benefit of just kind of being able to kind of have it ready, but not publicly
Yeah.
visible.
Meredith's comment is actually the one that I would have seen in the past as well. Is you have seasonal content, you have something that matters in the fall but doesn't matter in the spring, so you hide it
Yeah.
during any other time, but then you throw it back into there. So
Christine also added like showing and hiding timely content, like announcing applications being open. So maybe you're not officially ready to kind of announce something, but you're kind of prepping it. Um, Also, Logan
I roused
noted,
everybody up with my
yeah.
comments, so now everybody's throwing in great ideas. So I'm glad
Logan
I
said,
did that because great
yeah,
ideas.
there's some good ideas here. Logan said we use it on a few pages, including our enrollment reports. We have our main reports and our preliminary report for a few weeks each semester. Once the preliminary report becomes final, we hide the block until later. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And Andrea answered
Jana
Rich's
says,
question about
yeah,
the hidden copy thing. It's it's
yeah.
hidden from public consumption, though
Mhm.
Google may have already indexed that content. So hiding it doesn't change the fact that Google may have already
Yeah.
consumed it. So like for those of you who use
Yes.
this in a seasonal means,
Mhm.
even though you've hidden that content, Google will still have crawled your site and still show results for it, even though the content may not be visible on that page. So just be aware of that. That's just a general
Yeah,
limitation of Google and, site indexing.
that is a very good point. Yep. And then there's a question, is there a way to audit where content is being marked hidden? Don't want to miss anything. Yes. We are working on something called the Site Issues Hub, which would allow you to see kind of like these sort of in progress changes where we maybe added something that's going away or switching over to um, like the core approach, which is what happened in this case. We had our own method and then we're kind of aligning with WordPress core's option um, on that. So um, stay tuned on more information about that.
Yeah, I think Beth's question is a little broader than that. It's just more of like if I make the choice in my page,
Yeah, good
if I have
question.
50 pages and I've marked
Yeah,
something hidden on
and
30
I
of
don't
them,
remember.
how do I keep track of where I have done that? I don't
That's a
think
great
there's a way
question.
to audit that at the moment, but I
Yeah,
don't know
something to look into.
because it's a
Maybe we
core
could
thing.
make a plug with WordPress on that one, since we're using the core option. Rich said post-it notes. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I guess by default, no, but you never know. That's a good question. Okay. I now yield the floor to the owl, but let me share my screen to the other thing.
Yeah, and just to double check on time, Jenna, are there things to go after me in terms of order here? I'm just trying to look at the
Yeah, there's
slides, so
just
be
a
mindful of
couple
that.
of I think Ketter's going to be talking about some design best practices
Sure.
right
Okay,
after.
great. I want to make sure in case there's questions and we could always do an impromptu demo, but I want to be mindful of time. I'm going to try to keep us on time here as best I can. So thanks for letting me join you all today. Last time I had a chance to catch up with this group as well. In particular, kind of it was a little bit of a, hey, things are coming soon. But the good news is we're here today to really invite you all to actually start utilizing this new service. So what I wanted to talk with you all today about is the new digital accessibility web scanning service, which utilizes DubBot, which you may have heard about already. This new scanning service is something that's provided by the Center for User Experience. It's out there as sort of a starting, I would say, soft launch, if you will. So your group here, all of you are kind of like the first to kind of get this sort of invitation beyond our pilot testers. So we're very excited to offer this and make sure that you all can have a chance to kind of learn about this, get engaged with this, and see how it might help you in terms of sort of keeping an eye on your website for its level of digital accessibility compliance, as well as the fact that this tool, DubBot itself, does help you with other aspects of how you're building up your content. Kind of, helps you look for things like broken links, things like that. So what is basically to take place with this process with this tool is that this tool involves making a request out to us in queue. The form link that you'll see in this first bullet here does give you a way to fill out that form. As you go through this process, if you look at getting access to this tool, if you have questions, if things are leaving you with uncertainty, these are the things we want to hear about. We want to know how to make this a lot better, a lot more streamlined, and we want to figure out the best way to kind of get you involved with all of this. So the biggest thing here is that once you fill out a request such as this, we will go through and make sure that the site in question sort of follows all the guidelines that we need to make sure it's included with the tool. We'll get involved there, and we'll of course be sending you plenty of onboarding information to understand exactly what to kind of get started with. This tool in of itself will basically do what it does in terms of a crawl of your site. So it'll go through and look at each page, and it will give you a sense of any accessibility things you may need to focus on. I should point out that this is basically acting in many ways like a lot of other automated checkers will. So it'll kind of go page by page, and no tool is perfect, right? Now, they're not going to necessarily cover everything. And there may be things occasionally it runs into where, because of maybe how content is loaded after the fact, especially if you have anything that were to animate on your page, it's something to be mindful of, that there may be things you run into here. So we want to kind of make sure that as you all kind of get started here, we're going to learn as much from you as you hopefully will from utilizing something like this. And it's going to be a way for us to continue to kind of make this better and more useful. If you're looking for information on basically the service itself, as well as just more information on how to get support, I also have some links in here, and Matt has already pasted them in, which is fantastic, into chat. So if you didn't see that above, but it gives you a sense of exactly basically the outline of the service itself, and of course some general how-tos and guidance on actually getting started. I'm seeing this chat as well, especially I need to keep pull back from using Q2 specifically. I keep saying that as a short term, but it's the Center for User Experience. So with all of that, this tool is out there for effectively all of us to get a sense of how to build better accessible websites. As we develop this tool further, we will continue to kind of communicate exactly what sort of improvements are being made. And of course, a lot of this is going to be custom to each of your own sites and the way you handle them. So we'll anticipate working with each of you and sort of, building up settings and things like that as time goes on. I see a question from Adrian as well here. If previously completed a scan request, but didn't explicitly ID DubBot, do we need to do so again? No, you do not need to do that again. If you've already outlined that, we will make sure you are included in this onboarding, and we'll get you all set up with access. So that will specifically be included here as well. And will the, I missed the second part of the question. Oh my gosh. Will the scanning service provide a report? Yes. So it does have a dashboard involved. This dashboard itself will give you that bird's eye view of all of the content that's in place. and try to give you an idea of what sort of things you might need to take a look at, whether they're specific pages or issues in such of, sort of like with looking at PDFs as well. The idea around this is that this is largely for your access. The idea of reports, there are ways to generate reports if, let's say, you wanted to share this outside of the folks that you've requested access to your site's dashboard. By default, all of you would see your dashboard for your own site. This isn't like a large dashboard where you're going to see everyone's sites. Each individual unit would have, for example, could have access to its own group of sites. So you could see the 10 sites or 5 sites or 2 sites that maybe perhaps you have an eye on or manage. Beyond that, each group would have its own space within this tool as well. Hopefully that helps a little bit of the clarification. I don't want to necessarily throw us off for timing, Jenna, but I'm always happy to do sort of like a quick demo if people haven't seen this before. I don't know if that would help a little bit with some of the questions.
Yeah, let's just check in because I know Ketter was going to do some best practices. Ketter, how are you feeling about like how much time you might need for that portion?
Yeah, I think there's time.
Okay. All right. Al, I would say maybe like 5-ish minutes if that works.
Oh yeah,
5 to
we'll
10.
keep it to 5
Okay.
minutes, maybe even make it
Yeah.
quicker. So let me
Awesome.
hit share. All right, let me know if you all can see that. I'm going to leverage a view of IT.wisc as just to start here, but they have been, Eric has been gracious to let us demo this before, so this is really helpful. It gives you a sense of a lot of things that can be happening here. So I don't want to overwhelm folks, but as you were to come into utilizing something like DubBot, which is what you're looking at here, it's going to give you just an overall idea of your site score. So it's going to let you know in general, across all the different ways this tool can test things, what it's actually seeing in general. The main thing that you may want to be focusing on, though, is accessibility. There's also some wonderful best practices to include here. There are things that we think about when it comes to digital accessibility that don't necessarily fall under the WCAG or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Best practices is where those often fall. So when we talk about things like, hey, don't use learn more in your links over and over and over and over again on a repeating element, we're talking about, trying to give you contextual links. That's something that might be called, sort of really covered under best practices at this point. There are other pieces here you're going to see, though. You're going to see things like broken links. It'll help you with spell checking. It tries to look for things in the range of SEO, and in general, web governance are things that are a lot lighter right now, but these are things that we can work with each of you on if you ever had needs to, let's say, look for specific types of content on your site, especially if you're trying to do some sort of large migration or change of content. That's where a lot of that can really kind of help out. When it comes to looking at something like this tool, though, you can get, again, that bird's eye view of some of the things that you might be finding to be quick wins. These are kind of good ways to look at content and figure out what sort of adjustments you might need to make. For the most part, though, the thing that we see folks really dive into a lot is just sort of diving into the specific issues of an area. So if you're looking at accessibility, you can click on that list of issues. In this case, it just mentions 7. And in this case, it will highlight those issues by category and let you know, hey, what is the general category or issue description here? It's going to let you know where it falls in terms of sort of an impact level. And from there, you can kind of dive a little further. You can sort of dig into, well, where is this occurring? What sort of adjustments maybe do I need to consider making here? When you click on a particular issue, an instance of an issue, you can see how many places it occurs, and it'll tell you if it's occurring across 1 page or 10 pages or all of your pages. You'll be able to figure out exactly what you might need to do on that page. It's going to highlight what it sees as maybe needing to be looked at further. In this case, it's kind of referencing the color contrast here of a particular link. So as we dive into looking at any of these content changes, this is hopefully going to help you sort of figure out where you might need to focus some attention. But you're likely to have further questions, and we want to encourage you to either reach out to the center, as well as if you have further questions, you can even leverage the DubBot support staff, which is part of this tool's availability to all of you. So as you click on something like this, you can actually dive in and just ask a question that's around accessibility in general, accessibility to your page, or if you're having difficulties with the tool itself. Beyond DubBot support, Q is here to support you. Again, going back to that acronym, but you can always contact us and we're here to help talk you through some of these things as well. So something like this has a lot of potential, but it's going to take working with each of you to figure out the best ways to make sure it's applied. So as you look at tools like this, if you run into things that are leading you with more questions, we want to hear from you, and we want to know exactly how to make this more useful to all of you. Last thing I'll call out here, because I want to keep time really short. There are also ways where it'll call out PDFs. For example, if you want to have an eye on, well, what documents do I know I need to pay attention to that I might be linking and referencing? It's going to give you a list of PDFs, for example, that it may have identified as missing tagging. The ideas around what to do with those PDFs. How do you fix those PDFs? That is more information to come. We are working on different resources and tools that may be available and out there. So I don't want anyone to look at this content and draw some immediate need to fix everything, but it's important to think about this from the lens of making little steps, making progress as you go. All right. So as you focus on things that this tool might highlight, it's a great way to kind of start the conversation about certain things you might want to adjust, but overall, keep in mind that there's plenty more to work through. With that, Matt, I think this would be my segue to sort of the second slide I had, and we can take a quick peek there about the last links I wanted to kind of cover. And otherwise, I'll pass it to you, Katter, at that point.
Give me a hot second just to bring that back up. But if you wanted to, there are a number of questions in the chat that if you could kind of go through those, some very interesting questions. So I want to make sure that we touch on.
I see
just
some,
for
yes.
yeah, just for time. I wonder if we should answer in the chat. Looks like some
Danielle's
of them are
provided
answered,
some great
but
answers too to a few of them, so I don't want to save time on some of that as well.
Yeah.
All right, so I can go through and provide a few of those. I will jump through the chat and add some reference, some helpful replies, hopefully, to each of those. In the meantime, just to kind of mention as well, if you're looking for additional news and updates on everything that's happening in this space, the hub page is out there for you all to navigate and see. This is where a lot of the leading information is going to be posted. Beyond that, I just want to remind folks that we also have an evaluation service within the center that we're always happy to help and try to look through things in a much more sort of full, holistic, and deeper fashion in terms of what is actually happening with a particular digital resource. Our office hours continue to get a lot of interest and popularity. Getting to talk with folks like members of the team like Daniela, who's in chat right now, makes that really helpful, especially if you just need to get sort of a nice quick question answered. So looking at all that, as well as the Make It Accessible guides, are the things I will point to. And in the meantime, I'll pass over to you, Katter, while I help answer some questions in chat.
Thank you so much, Al. I just want to give a shout out for the Center for User Experience. They're doing wonderful work, and we're very appreciative of the hard work that you're all doing and the effort involved in kind of making sure that we're all making our content accessible and answering all of our questions. Thank you so much to all of you, and especially Al for presenting today. Thank you.
I second that. Yeah, I will share my screen, and then if we have time, the user JD Elstein, if I'm saying that right, so sorry, maybe we can look at your content width for others to also see how we would change that and take a peek at what's going on there. It's kind of hard to explain over chat.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna recommend that she reach out to me via office hours.
Oh, perfect.
Because it might just be easy. It might just be easier to do it that way because of context of the question and digging around for the answer.
Depending on what's going on, yeah, for sure. Content width in Gutenberg can be very tricky. Okay, I'll share my screen again. Thanks, Al, for all that great info. Okay, here we go. Sharing a screen is just always so scary to me. It's just scary. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the group of links block versus the UW link block. And we'll talk a little bit about this heading 3 in just a little bit. But one thing that we've been seeing on some sites that are either building from scratch or migrating and then also making some visual changes is that some folks are using the UW link block and stacking them on top of each other to create a list of related links. And so I just wanted to talk through a little bit about some of the accessibility issues there, but then also some alternatives that folks can consider instead. When screen readers rely on semantic HTML to understand the structure of your content as they're reading it out to the user. And so when links are visually grouped but not coded as a list, so they're using this UL element, screen readers will read them as kind of like one long unstructured block of links. So you really want to associate those things together for the user so that it makes sense that these links are all related to one another. For creating a list of links, we recommend using the UW group of links block or the WordPress list block. And that just makes sure your links are coded correctly and accessible for screen readers. So here's an example of the UW link block on the page with just a single call to action. That's how we intend for this particular block to be used. It's just a single call to action to really draw attention to a particular action. Whereas you can see these are 3 different examples. This is what we see with people stacking the UW link block versus here's the group of links block, which is in a structured UL semantic HTML element, and then the list block here. The group of links block is what our teams have developed together, and the list block is a WordPress core block. So sometimes just interesting to know which one's coming from us and which one's coming from WordPress. You'll always know it's ours if it has the UW prefix on it. And we did a little user research around this, and from the groups we were able to chat with, some of the primary reasons why folks maybe chose the UW link block over the group of links block. That has so many ways of saying links. One of them was just that people weren't aware of the accessibility issue or the group of links block. This can be really tricky, just working with lists of anything. And, moving in and shifting into this new world of UW Theme 2.0, you just might not have seen it yet, that block. And for some folks, it was that the UW group of links block design didn't fit their needs. So some people are looking for something that's more compact, maybe a layout without padding or dividers so that this can be too much for what you're looking for. And maybe you're displaying it in a 1-column layout or in some other way where you have maybe a longer list where too much padding or these dividers is just like too much for the layout that you're looking for. The other one was that the UW link block is just easy to duplicate and match other links on the page, so that makes sense. And just based off of this feedback that we're getting, we're going to look into ways to improve the group of links block to kind of better match what people are looking for, and some of those things to make it an easier choice in those instances where having a semantic list order is better for screen readers. And if we were able to get a ton of users to chat through their use of either of these things yet. So if you're somebody who has, and maybe you've had feedback or you felt frustrated by the group of links block or UW link block or confused, I'd love to chat with you. So let me know, please reach out. So we'll be looking into some improvements there. I just also wanted to note that the list block, something that some folks haven't seen quite yet because it can be kind of hidden. I'm going to open up my list view here, my document overview up in the top bar of my WordPress editor. And then I'm going to find my list block, which is not there. I'm going to click around. It's right here. If I open up my settings panel up in the top bar here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there are these style options for the list block. It comes in by default more compact, but you can also select more space. This can work well if you've got, for me, like here, where maybe my list items run multiple lines. It's useful if you can try to keep your list to one line and keeping them more plain language and pretty brief, but that more space can kind of help the eye if you've got something where you just have a little bit more content there, but that it's still plain language and compact. That extra space can be useful. Some people have asked about why we might float the arrow in the UW link block to the left. I have a really hard time with left and rights, but this is left, and why we might float it to the right in the group of links block. And it's a great question. So I'll talk through that a little bit. In the UW link block, we think of this again as a single call to action. So the arrow on the left there and being red serves as a really strong visual anchor. You can see when they're all stacked like that, that can be pretty visually cluttered for the eye. So if you have a lot of red, that makes it say like everything's important, but you really only want one thing to be important when you're using that block. In the group of links block, we're really prioritizing that arrow being on the right because of reading order. So when it's on the right-hand side there, it's more of a directional cue to read the link first. You really want to get people to where they go and kind of guide that eye to go deeper with that arrow being on the right-hand side. So we're really wanting people to have two mental models when they're using these blocks. For the UW link block, it's that single call to action where your mental model should be do this action. For the group of links block, the mental model is really like choose from these links, and you want to prioritize reading order in that way. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if didn't actually look at the chat, so I don't know if there's any questions that have come in since then.
Yeah, there was a couple, or there were a couple things that came in. I'm just kind of scrolling back up because some were still about the accessibility conversations.
Oh, sure.
There was a question about is the WordPress list block a current option if we want to make something more compact? And Danielle did respond to that, like, yes, as you showed here, that can be used, but I'll kind of pass that over in case there's anything else that you want to share about that.
Yeah, totally. And I'm all for a simple list. So I think, like it's always nice to sort of think of what's the simplest way you can display something. And the list block is really nice.
Mhm,
It does what it says it's going to do. It's real good. Um,
mhm.
with the group of links block, we are going to be looking at some other display options here in the future to kind of help with that compact look you might be looking for in certain layouts. But what's nice here is you have within our design language, we have these three different options for arrow styles. So you can quickly swap between them depending on what you're looking to do, but still kind of preserve the specialness of that subtle hover state. So that can be useful in, a sidebar of page jumps, for example, or jump links, things like that. You can still use the list block for things like that too. You'll notice how we use this pretty often in our patterns, the group of links block. We do have a pattern section. I'm opening up again if you see my document overview here, if I click on the block inserter, I have the blocks I can choose from to drag from the page and the patterns. And there is a category called links. And so you can see different ways there, how we use these two different blocks in different ways. And making the difference between these things too clear is something we're working on. So if you do have feedback on that, I'd love to hear it. Some of it is explaining some of this within the block description, but there's also other ways we might not be thinking of yet. So I did also want to surface that there are some in the past two releases, there have been some new patterns that we've added. And let me see where I've put those. Yes, put those on this page. So one pattern that we added was for highlighting a person or something on your page. This really came from looking at a lot of sites on campus that will often want to feature a member of leadership, or maybe it's a message from your leadership. And so we wanted to provide a quick, efficient way to do that. And this might be a nice pattern for some of you if you're interested in this. Another one is something we've heard a lot from WiscWeb users and other theme users over the years is that just looking for more ways to display images. Some folks don't have the luxury of images, so that's why we're also trying to put in a lot more patterns that are more text-based as well. But we thought this is a nice one for showcasing your story, a story you might have, or you can swap these images with anything. You could imagine that maybe each image is showing a transformation of something, or just highlighting your history. This was also a common thing we were seeing on sites. So we wanted to find a quick way for you to be able to highlight content in this way about your own stories. We do have another in our cards pattern category. Something I want to highlight real quick. I can get to my cards category here, or I can also click Explore All Patterns, which is really hidden down at the bottom. You're seeing a lot of categories on this screen because I've made some of my own, so they're showing up here, but yours might look different. But if I click Explore All Patterns, I can quickly also swap between those different categories. So in the cards category, there is a new pattern here, where we've got cards. We know people love cards. Cards are awesome. But the cards we currently had before were ones with full bleed images, and these have a little bit of padding around it. This is using the grid block, which can be a little tricky. I won't go into a full demo of that, but I definitely encourage going to WordPress.org's documentation on the grid block to learn a little bit more about how it works. And a user had told me recently that a page that they are looking at a lot on the UW theme site is, if you go to features, go to blocks on the UW theme site. If you click to core WordPress blocks, we've kind of curated a list of like most commonly used ones. There's some more that aren't listed here, but these are the ones that you might find yourself using a lot of. And this is a quick way to get to WordPress.org documentation about those blocks. And some of this documentation is pretty stellar. So I would check this out. The grid block is really nice once you get used to it. It's a little bit more advanced sometimes. So if, we're also checking out ways to make cards more with the column block as well. So you might see that in the future where more of our card patterns are maybe using the columns block instead. But let me show you an example here where I have my document overview open again. I'm selecting the top parent grid block here, and each of these stack blocks is a card. So I can click here in the more options, that 3 vertical dots there, and click duplicate. And then I've got another card here. And with the grid block itself, definitely encourage you to look up this a little bit more. I can change, how those appear. So take a peek at that. Always check these on mobile as well to make sure when you're changing the grid item position, they look how you want on mobile. So getting in the habit of up on this top app bar, clicking view, clicking on mobile, and just viewing your page there is a really useful habit to get into just as you're working, even as you're migrating, just checking things as they migrate in and seeing what they look like. It's 12:54. I did want to cover one more small thing.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So I was going to mention one other thing that we've been noticing on some sites is some heading level orders being not in the semantic order. And one of the reasons for that is it's just something that people are going to have to get a little bit more used to in Gutenberg, is that, you have to be cognizant of your heading level order as you're working with the heading block itself. So, right now, every new page starts with a title block, which should always be your H1. And then from there, you want to make sure you're using the correct order of H2, H3, and so on. And the Center for UX has a great, I had it in my tabs and I know I don't. No, I do have it. Here it is. Has a great guide on headings and just everything. So I'm going to share that one in here. I look at this one often. And check that out if you haven't. It's a really good document. Why does this say mine? Here we go. Make it accessible guide. It's the design fundamentals one. And this feature in the block editor gets hidden a lot, but it's the outline view. So again, in my top app bar here in the block editor, if I click on document overview, I can switch between list view and outline. You can see here this heading 3. This should be a heading level 2, and you can see how it's yellow and it's highlighted. Something I wish WordPress core had was like a ticker here that would show it like a 1, 2, or 3 of issues or something. But these are things that also DubBot can help scan for too. So like your, heading level structure and things like that. So just make sure that, I've got a heading level here 3. This is my heading block. And again, I can use my list view to make sure I'm selecting that. If I click H3 here, I can change the level. So I'm going to change this to 2. And then I'm going to check my outline view again. And now you can see it's gray. It's no longer orange. And rich, yeah, if they're gray, yeah, that's good. The title block is where it can get a little bit tricky. Just make sure your title block is always H1, because you see how it says title rather than H1. You just have to remember in that scenario that like that should be your H1 in case. So yeah, that's what I have. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ketter. There was a lot of chatter in the chat. I think most questions got answered within the chat, if that's okay. Let us know if you have continued questions there. I think there's a couple things still being answered. But yeah, thank you so much, Ketter. That was oh, sorry, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I saw there's some chatter around the title block and stuff specifically. I will plan on doing another discussion around that particular topic, just because it will need a little bit more time.
Okay.
Do a deep dive in that one for sure.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
And the
Thank
title might
you.
be in hero or something for sure, Rich. Yeah. So I will
Okay.
just so others can see that. I'm going to share my screen again really quick. You can, because the title block is its own block, you can move that around. Let me share. I won't show how that works, at least today, just because we're running up on time. But if I clicked in patterns and you went to the page title category, these have the title block built into them already. We do intend to build this out more. So you can think of these as sort of your page toppers where your title block is built in there. And so you'll see this category grow over time. One of the things we're looking at is like, what are those different areas that people would want up there? We've gotten a lot of questions around like, should my title be left aligned or right aligned? And those are such good questions. And we want to create some patterns around those things that the top area of your site can be consistent across your pages. Thank you.
Heather, there was a
Thanks
great
so much.
question in the chat. Sorry, I was just wondering if we could maybe quickly address the question that sorry, Vanessa posted. She said we cannot change the size of heading text though, right? I thought that might be a good one.
Such a good question. Yeah. Oh, I just turned my video off. I'm all over the place today. Let me share my screen again.
I've got my share going, Ketter.
Oh, please do. Yeah, please do that.
Yeah. So if you are, if we're looking here, so for example, I have an H2 in this featured content block right here. One of the options that we have added, or I shouldn't say what that we have added, but we have piggybacked off of, is the typography settings area in your settings sidebar has a font size drop down. And from there, I can change those to small. And then we also have the rem sizes in there as well, just for your awareness, to up to jumbo 3. So I can now make it stand out. And so in the code to a screen reader, it's still reading as an H2, but I am adjusting the display size if I want it to stand out or not stand out as much as it was before. So there you go. Bingo bango.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. The heading level and the font size can be separate things, and don't change the heading level to get a larger size. Use that typography font size, and also be mindful of like when you change the size, because you also want your type hierarchy to stay consistent across your site. So thinking through, when do you strategically change it? Is it for a headline that you want to be really large because you want that marketing piece of wanting to draw attention to a particular topic, things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
1 o'clock. You're all
Yes, we're at 1. I just did want to just say thanks, Ketter, for sharing that wonderful guidance and insight into how to use Group of Links and UW Link and the various patterns that we have available. Continued kudos and appreciation for all the work that you're doing to understand how people are using the theme and then get good guidance out there for our users. So we're very appreciative. Thanks, everybody. We're probably going to have to cap it there just because of time, but we appreciate you. Thanks for joining, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Bye.
Let me stop the recording. Stop the recording, Matthew.